Recording in progress.
Call to order the regular meeting of the Rio Dell City Council. Roll call, please.
Mayor Garn.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Carter.
Here.
Councilmember Orr. Here. Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Woodall.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Public presentations. This is the time for persons who wish to address the council on any matter not on this agenda and over which the council has jurisdiction. As such, a dialogue with the council or staff is not allowed under the Ralph M. Brown. Items requiring council actions not listed on this agenda may be placed on the next regular agenda for consideration if the council directs, unless a finding is made by at least 2/3 of the council that the item came up after the agenda was posted and is of an urgency nature requiring immediate action. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. Any, email? Yeah. And we will close public presentation. Welcome, Supervisor Bushnell. Thank you for coming to our council meeting. We are now going to the consent calendar. Is there anyone who would like to remove an item from the consent calendar? No. Anyone in the audience? Anyone on? Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Oh, do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Yeah, vote. Motion carries 5-0. Staff reports and communication. City manager, page 49 in our packets.
Thank you, Mayor Garn, members of the council. So staff did hold a meeting with members of the Humboldt Rotary Club just yesterday to discuss the concept for recreational non-motorized boating on the Eel River, ideally from Rio Dell over to the River Lodge in Fortuna. It was an interesting conversation, a lot of different things. Concept of integration with the Great Redwood Trails, different concepts there to allow for camping opportunities for boaters down the river, along with a bunch of different ideas. So we'll be working with that group. It doesn't come at any city cost, but we're happy to provide them advice and encourage them on their way. The council also, Councilmember Wilson, Mayor Pro Tem Carter and Mayor Garnes also attended a soft ribbon cutting for the Eel River Trail on May 24th. And that was sort of an event specifically for the school children for our Eel River Trail projects, which is slated to be completed towards October, November of this year. The event went very well. We had great ribbon cutting, some photos and whatnot were taken. And then Councilmember Carter was able to take that material to the Trails Summit this past Saturday. So just want to give a special shout out to the attendance for that event. Work is also, as you may have noticed, over the last week, there's been a tremendous amount of work underway here in town, including right here near City Hall. This project specifically is Pacific Gas and Electric's work that you may recall a couple of years ago that PG&E kind of made a sudden announcement that there was no electrical capacity for new hookups in Fortuna, Rio Dell, and Southern Humboldt. And so there's been a tremendous amount of work done on the Rio Dell substation, and now they're branching out to do transmission upgrades here in Rio Dell. Part of that project includes some new underground work adjacent here to City Hall, moving new power lines out along 2nd Avenue, Davis Street, Pacific, and eventually across the river to the north end of town and to the north portion of Rio Dell on the north side of the river. So we're excited to see that project move forward. However, it is obviously very disruptive. There's been a lot of traffic interruptions. The parking lot was basically closed today. So we urge people to have patience with that project, but it's very good news for Rio Dell. We look forward to working with our partners at PG&E once the project is completed to make sure that the broader community is well aware that Rio Dell has power for new hookups. With that, the staff report is outlined in your packet, and staff is available to answer questions that the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Mayor Tim.
No questions. It seems like the police have had a lot going on, but I guess that's 2 months worth of reporting.
They're not here.
Oh, the possum, and nobody's here, but yeah, if you guys could read the bit about the possum, it's worth it. It's not a good read. Anyway, no questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Orr.
No.
Councilmember Woodall? No. Councilmember Wilson? Anyone in the, from the public would have any questions for staff? Any emails or any emails there? No? No. Okay. And let's see, I thought I had one. But, well, if I don't, if I cannot remember. Oh, is there going to be, when they do this work, let's say on Second Avenue, for example, are they going to pave over it? Is it going to get smoothed out in any way?
Yeah, so we certainly hope that will be the case. There will be trenching done on Second Avenue. And it's going to be a mix of above ground and below ground electrical work. So the trenches that they did will be paved over, but
So they're probably going to be narrow.
to be frank, it probably won't make much of a difference.
Just was hopeful. Girl can dream. Thank you. We'll move on to the presentation, prioritizing essential services in an era of natural disasters.
It will take just a second to get the PowerPoint loaded up, and I'll just make a quick introduction while we get this set up on the computer. So we have Sean Quincy from the County Administrative Office, Deputy CAO Sean Quincy, and also Tom Matson, our County Public Works Director, here to present. So we appreciate that being here. Staff did converse with them a couple weeks ago or a month ago regarding this, and we certainly think it's an important topic for not just the county, but for Rio Dell and for motorists and disaster survivors.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. Greatly appreciate it. Look forward to it.
And thank you, Mayor Barnes, City Council, City staff. Appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you all. I believe this is the first time I'm addressing this council as a body, so I just want to quickly introduce myself and a little bit about myself. Before we get into the presentation, moved here back in 2002 from originally from San Diego. Went up to HSU, studied early childhood journalism, played a little bit of football, also at HSU, worked at the newspaper locally, heard some early childhood stuff, also worked at a preschool over in Ferndale. Most recently, though, I was here about 2.5 years ago, press conference, when there was a small natural event that I'm sure that you all are aware of. It was pretty funny when we were having that press conference. There was an aftershock that happened in the middle of it, and we had tons of media here. And I just remember that moment as being kind of captured perfectly for the media who were here to help them realize the effects that were happening in our small community. And part of this presentation we'll talk about some of those impacts. But I want to turn it over to Tom to introduce himself too.
Tom Matson, Director of Public Works. I came up to Humboldt in '86, again to go to HSU to get my engineering degree. Went back down to the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area in 1990. Came back up as soon as I got a good job opportunity in 1992 and been here ever since. worked for Recology or SHN Engineers, Recology, running the landfill. And then in 1998, I joined the county in charge of the roads. In 2005, I became the director. Pat and I have worked together on lots of different things.
Again, thank you. So we'll go ahead and get into the presentation. And the presentation centers around natural disasters and the impact that they're having on our community. So over the last decade or more, Humboldt County has been seeing an uptick in the number and the severity of natural disasters. And these disasters run the gamut from floods and fires, earthquakes, recently a landslide over at Cleaner Creek. Some of these disasters hit specific parts of our communities, such as the earthquake that happened here in December a couple years ago, and some are widespread in our entire community. But regardless, when these emergencies happen, local governments declare emergencies. Less frequently, the state and federal government declare emergencies. And as this council and city staff are well aware, a declaration of an emergency is a public declaration to other levels of government that we don't have the resources to respond to that emergency. When the state and federal government do not follow up and declare that emergency, that shuts down our ability to claim funding to provide for those emergencies. It's left on the local communities to respond to that and provide funding for it. These rolling emergencies, as we're tending to see, are taking a toll on the county, and they, as we continue to work on the budget, sustainable budget for this year and into the future, we're here to talk to you about where we may be headed. And I don't want to hide the ball from this council or this community. Ultimately, one of the potential responses to this is increased local funding. And that could mean a sales tax coming to the ballot in November. What form that takes, we're not sure. We're looking to pull the community and look for priorities, but I want to be upfront and honest about this is one of the potential responses that we could have to help solve our problems in the future. All right. The rest of the presentation will be dedicated to kind of how we got here and some of the on-the-ground impacts that we're seeing. How we got here, the story begins with the state. Over the last 30 plus years, the state has taken more than $500 million from the county's general fund. And these are not just numbers made out of thin air. Back in the early 90s, as you may be aware, the state was unable to meet its obligations, and it carved out local property taxes to go and meet the state's obligations. And what that means for us is that we cannot use that money to meet local needs. Every year that number grows, and over this current year, that's more than $25 million that would otherwise gone to the general fund to address local needs. These numbers are maintained by our Auditor Controller's office, and again, this is where the issue has started for us. That number does not include the number of state mandates that come every year, unfunded state mandates, where the state is saying, hey, we want local governments to do this on top of everything else, but we're not going to give you funding. As I'm sure that this body is well aware, the state is facing a record deficit between 37 and $73 billion, depending on who counts the numbers. And we are in a incredibly defensive position trying to protect local funding. The governors may revise proposed hundreds of millions of dollars cut for funding that could be spent on emergency preparedness and transportation needs. This deficit is not going to be solved in a year, and so we're going to continue to be in this defensive position where we are worried about the state turning to local governments. And this is how these things happen. When the state is in a bad place, one of the first places they look to is local government funding sources to meet state obligations. So we've seen this cycle happen over and over again, and we are trying to protect, doing everything we can to protect from that. And at the same time, we have some distinct challenges when it comes to preparing for local disasters and responding to emergencies. And we need to provide services to our local community that they have come to deserve or come to expect and deserve. And again, the rest of this presentation will be dedicated to how we can get there. But we're not the only ones that are recognizing this need to do more to prepare. The grand jury last year produced a report. You will have likely seen in the media. I think the grand jury just produced their third report. But last year they produced a report on local emergency preparedness, what our community is doing. And they said in no uncertain terms that the county of Humboldt needs to do more to prepare for emergencies due to our topography, our tendency towards seismic issues and floods and fires, as well as climate change that's exacerbating the impact of sea level rise on our community. So this is the reason that I bring this up is because this is the grand jury's public statement to our community saying, government leaders, we need to do more to prepare for natural disasters. If I could leave you with one thing today, it would be that we believe that natural disasters have simply become a everyday part of life. And Tom can talk a little bit about the history that he's seen here in the last 30 plus years. But we believe that we need to reorient the way we deliver public services in the light of the way the natural disasters are impacting our community.
When I started in February 1998, March 1998 was the first storm disaster the county declared that I was working for the county. At that time, I look back and we were averaging a federal disaster declaration about once every 3 years. And in fact, there's a direct correlation from storm damage in December to March. 80% of the time, if we get a declared disaster in December, we're going to have a declared disaster in March because that's just the way the storm tracks are tracking. So going into 2017, the roads were still looking pretty decent. I had about $1 million in reserve for storm damage, and 2017 storm hit us to a tune of $41 million in damage to our roads. Then we got hit in 2019 for another 15 million. And then from 2022 through 2024, we had 3 storm damage and then of course the earthquake. And living 5 miles north of here, I woke up falling off my bed on the floor. And so that was 4 disasters, and now we're under a current local disaster for our work out in Centerville with the big landslide we had. So they are clearly getting stronger and harder and hitting us on a more regular basis.
And so as Tom alluded to, with the county government, we're feeling the impact of that most on our roads. And that affects residents' ability to evacuate when an emergency hits their community. We simply live in an area where impacts from disasters significantly affect our roads compared relative to other infrastructure. And this slide mentions the need to hardening our roads. And again, I'll turn it over to Tom to talk more about disaster funding. But it's important to address this topic because when we get to emergencies, I'm sure that you are well aware, FEMA gets involved or California gets involved, and there could be a misperception that that's a silver bullet. There's an emergency, state and feds come in and they take care of everything, but that is simply not the case.
So when a disaster happens, the county has to respond. We have to respond with our gas fund money, our maintenance money, because we have no other money to do it. And so it gets into a vicious circle of I'm using my maintenance money to front the disaster repairs, and then I'm not getting reimbursed for probably 6 to 10 years later. And so my maintenance, my pavement condition goes down. I'm sure that you've seen reports on your pavement condition. The county's is the worst among every agency in Humboldt County. And it's a vicious circle for us, because right now I'm sitting on $70 million worth of damage since 2017, and I got revenue of $15 million a year. So I'm running in the red about $10 million. We've cut our maintenance as far as we possibly can cut it. But when we talk about the reimbursement and the hardening is even harder to fund because we have no local money to do it. And while it is supposed to be available through FEMA, it is very difficult. You and I clearly fought the hard fought for Monument, trying to get upgrades to Monument. And it's been, well, to say an uphill battle is to put it very mildly, trying to get the right thing done up there. And that's the kind of thing the county has over 100 times, 100 places throughout the county right now that are existing storm damage sites that we're in the process of repairing. So all we do in an emergency is emergency opening. We open the road, usually just to 1 lane. And we go from there, and then we go into the approval process. Generally takes 3 years on a good day to get the final approvals to go to construction. And again, we're fronting the money and then waiting 6 to 10 years to get it reimbursed. So an example, the picture of Bear Road this year. The residents there were stranded for 2 weeks while we scrambled with contractors trying to reopen the road. A big hillside came down, flooded the culvert washed down the road, the road turned into the river, and the road said bye-bye. And so this is the kind of thing that we have to face out on the county roads. Just went through this, off track. So you can see, we've got the PCI up here by counties only, the 58 counties in California. 8-10 years ago, we were up in that fair range. We were pretty much trying to hold our own, but over the last few years, we've dropped significantly because we have no money to keep our maintenance. We're now into the poor condition. And the importance of this is if you're in the good to very good condition, you've minimized your maintenance costs. You're repairing your roof instead of repairing your entire ceiling. Is the way I like to put it. So you do a lot of slurry seals. We do a lot of slurry seals. We combine our bids so we get a better cost for all the cities in the county. Those are the things that you can do when your roads are in good condition that keep them in good condition for a long time. With our existing funding, we're actually projecting that we're going to be in the very poor failed within 10 years. That means our pavement's just going to be horrible. And in certain places it already is. The PCI is an average. So just for an example, PCI of 100, as you know, probably know, is a brand new road. We have very few of those, but we try to keep them in good shape as we can. A few years ago, we were in the mid 60s, just your average road, county road in the mid 60s. Right now, this is where we're at in the PCI range, and we're actually at 49, but 45, 49, they're starting to really get bad. You can see lack of maintenance. We don't have the people to pull the ditches. We don't have the people to seal the cracks, and they just get worse and faster. And so we're projecting that if we wanted to get to PCI 70 in 10 years, it would take $500 million. The value of the asset value of the county road system is over $1 billion. We know we're not going to get that, but we need to make progress starting to go back in the positive direction. So here's completely failed roads. They're not gravel yet, but they will be gravel very soon. And they're much more expensive to repair than just putting in a slurry in. So with that bad news, I'll turn it back to you.
And I'd like to also just mention, if you go back to the graph that shows the levels of PCI, all their 6 counties in that area. And each of those 6 counties have a dedicated local funding source for roads. And some of those jurisdictions have multiple funding sources. So it's no surprise, more funding equals better service on your roads. But this leads us to our ask of this council. Back in last summer, we polled the community around a little bit over 600 likely voters because our board was considering placing a sales tax management March ballot dedicated to emergency services, roads, and other services. And what came back was this set of priorities. And as you can see, if you look at the priorities, it's kind of a disparate set of services ranging from road repair, leveraging state and federal funds, homeless services, transportation, climate action, including transit. And so we just don't have enough funding to fund all these services. These are all obviously very important services to the community. But now with such a limited pool of discretionary what the community's priorities are. And so our ask, this council and the community is to, we have a survey online on our website and to let us know which among these priorities are the most important for the community. We're talking a lot about roads here, obviously, because that's where the county has seen the most impact, but that might not be the community's priorities. And so we want to know what the community's priorities are among these different priorities here. You will all likely be receiving a piece of mail. Be getting your mailbox as soon as tomorrow, sometime by the end of this week. Again, the QR code and everything to the surveys. We're really trying to do a lot of community outreach. as we prepare our budget for this year and beyond. So we can pull these things back to services that we can provide. And so I also another ask that we would have as council specifically is that if there are any other groups in your community that you think would benefit from hearing this message and this presentation, have questions for us, please let us know. We're more than happy to go out and talk with anybody in the community. But with that, I want to thank you again for having us, and we'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Well, thank you both. That was very depressingly enlightening. We appreciate you coming.
No questions. I've got the survey up on the wall already.
Good.
Wilson? Are there any? Yes, oh, yeah. You, yeah.
I always have something to say. Thank you. Sure, well, 3 Painter Street, Rio Dell. Definitely the budget constraints can't be overstated on what we're seeing. You're also not going to see anything from the state coming for any of this because they're trying desperately to put some massive bond measures on the November ballot. There's likely going to be 3 of them. And they're trying to determine priorities right now because there was a list of, I had it one time, I think it was 10, possibly more proposed. Instead of paring down that list, they're just combining them to make them into 3. It's going to be huge. I'm talking tens of billions of dollars on the ask for roads, for climate, for schools, for housing, for everything. As part of the budget process, my prediction, if I were to make one, is they're not going to invest any extra money in this budget in any of those priorities because that dilutes their message to the voters that we desperately need your money, more of it. It's cynical, it's how they work. And if you don't believe me, I'll give you lots of examples. But so we're not going to see any money come in that direction. Putting a bond measure on, which I think we're going to need to do locally, I would just really encourage to promote the heck out of it as we're not the state. If we pass a bond measure, you're going to see some effects. You're going to see some roads paved. You're going to see something done. You're not going to see 10 years down the road, everyone saying, didn't we pass a bond? What the heck happened to all that? I would also be pushing it really hard on the natural disasters aspect. We all know that one. I have the video from that press conference with that earthquake, and it was probably a full minute before any of us could breathe again after just that aftershock, because it's just so in your bones, you know, for every movement. So those are things that Humboldt County residents, I think, would respond to, would understand, and we're going to have to push really hard to get them out there to vote, because for some really unexplainable reason, people seem to be very cynical about the political process these days. And so it's going to be really difficult. I think we just need to make sure as a local community, we're messaging it together again and push it hard. I push hard against the state on, they have screwed up so many bond measures. I honestly don't think they're going to manage to pass their bond measures, not after Prop 1 and what happened with that one. And I think they're also going to be asking the voters to relieve them from the GAN limit, which is basically asking the voters to say, we need more ability to mess with your money, just trust us, give us this authority. And I don't think that's going to go well either. But anyway, I think locally we've got a really good shot on it. I don't want to pay any more taxes, but I really would like my roads. So we do have mutual interest. And again, keeping it local, keeping that push together and making the emphasis that you will see results from it with the local bond measure. We're not the state.
Yes, thank you. You should hire her.
Yeah.
We're very lucky that, not in this capacity, but we're very lucky sharing with the county. If I may, Mayor, tack on to what Ms. Wolf said. As Chair mentioned, one of the benefits of having local measures like this is that it cannot be taken by the state. There's transparency and accountability with these measures. Your elected officials are a phone call away, email away, a meeting at the coffee shop away to say what's going on with this. Any measure that we place on the ballot would come with an advisory committee made up of citizens and other public officials, baking in an accountability piece there. And there's always the ability for if residents don't like the way that things are going, if there's something in place and it should pass, there's always the ability for local residents to put something on the ballot and even to remove it. There's a lot of local accountability that comes with these local mayors as well.
We appreciate everything you said. We appreciate Sharon, what you said. I think the whole, not the state, is a very good message to put out there. Thank you for coming. And if we find someone, if I find someone, a group, that would benefit, I would definitely reach out because there are a lot of messages that need to get out and we can get them focused. I think people will hear it if it's put the right way and focused on something that will help them. So I appreciate you coming, you both.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now we move on to a presentation from Recology over the annual rate adjustment to solid waste franchise agreements, page 55 in our packet.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council, and I neglected to inform the mayor earlier that we're going to pull this item from the agenda. We'll come back at the council's next meeting. Unfortunately, there was an error in the printing of the agenda. We apologize for that. The material didn't make it into the packet. So discussing that with Recology, we're just going to have the meeting this agenda item on the next agenda.
Well, that's fine. I didn't notice anyone from Recology. Okay, well then that is pulled. So we will move on to presentation. Adoption of the fiscal year 2024-25 operational and capital budget, page 61 in our packets. City Manager.
So thank you, Mayor Garnes and members of the council. I think Rose is going to set up the PowerPoint. It does take a minute on the system. It's a little bit slower than normal. I really want to thank Travis and the entire finance department for their work on this. I think we have the budget dialed in here in the city. There certainly are challenges that we're facing, but the work of the council over the past several years has meant that we have a robust reserve, has meant that we have seen additional revenues, not just through sales taxes, but through innovative approaches, particularly related to cannabis. This budget year potentially has the potential of being a banner year for cannabis revenues. Some other jurisdictions aren't able really to say that. There's a net benefit to the coffers of the city, but I'm proud to be able to say that it does and has. Since the inception of the program. And so there are concerns particularly related to law enforcement funding, escalating costs associated with having our own independent police department. We are in the best position the city's ever been to be able to manage these problems. And so that's a real credit to the council for fiscal discipline and for, again, creative revenue ideas and follow through on that. But I want to hand this over to Travis to give the presentation for this year's budget.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor Garnes and council members. As we approach the close of the current fiscal year, I'm excited to present the recommended budget that reflects our city's priorities and plans. The city's budget development process follows a well-defined timeline, commencing in early March with the distribution of comprehensive budget worksheets to department heads. Departmental budget requests have been submitted and reviewed by the finance department in April. This information forms the basis for the initial draft budget presented to the city manager for approval. During a dedicated council study session in May, each budgetary fund, anticipated staffing level, and capital projects are meticulously reviewed for the upcoming fiscal year. The culmination of this process occurs in June, with the staff presentation of the recommended budget for adoption for the following year, beginning July 1st. At the May 21st City Council meeting, the council established 5 key priorities for fiscal years 24 and 25. These priorities focus on public safety staff, ensuring adequate staffing levels to maintain public safety throughout the city. Public works infrastructure projects, implementing critical infrastructure projects to improve the city's public works system. Economic development plan and execution, effectively carrying out the established economic development plan to foster economic growth. Street planning implementation, enacting a comprehensive street planning strategy. And finally, community engagement and parks development, actively engaging the local community, particularly young people, in the development of parks and recreational facilities. On May 21st, the City Council received a detailed presentation on the recommended budget for the upcoming fiscal year. This presentation included a comprehensive overview of the budget, so the city's organizational chart, a summary of capital and special projects, and the associated budget calendar. The proposed budget of $19.5 million is categorized into operating expenditures, debt service, and capital and special projects. Projected revenues for the fiscal year are $18.2 million, with approximately $1.2 million coming from unassigned fund balances. These meticulously calculated figures clearly explain the city's financial standing for the coming year. The recommended budget for fiscal year 24-25 reflects a significant increase of $10.7 million, or 122% compared to the previous fiscal year. A key driver of this growth is the city's successful acquisition of a $12.8 million drinking water state revolving fund grant secured through the Regional Water Quality Control Board. Over $11 million of this grant is designated for construction of the water distribution system project, which is anticipated for completion within the upcoming fiscal year and is detailed in the capital and special projects summary. Excluding special and capital projects, the largest budgeted allocation remains the police department, with the budget exceeding $1.6 million. Revenue projections for the fiscal year 24-25 are estimated at $18.2 million, representing a significant increase of 139% compared to the previous fiscal year. This substantial growth mirrors the increase in expenditures and is primarily attributed to anticipated reimbursements associated with the water distribution system project. However, the city anticipates a decrease in Measure J sales tax revenues due to the scheduled 40% reduction taking effect in January 2025. Conversely, cannabis revenues projected to increase by nearly 60%. This positive forecast is driven by the stability of operations among our Denmark Plateau cultivators and the expansion of cannabis business within the Rio Dell Business Park on Northwestern Avenue. The city's general fund primarily relies on a combination of property taxes, property tax in lieu of vehicle license fees, sales taxes, and cannabis taxes. For the upcoming fiscal year, general fund revenue projections are at $1.7 million, reflecting a 6% increase, or about $100,000 more than the previous fiscal year. This anticipated growth in general fund revenue is largely attributed to the projected rise in cannabis tax collections, despite the expected decline in Measure J sales tax revenue as previously discussed. The general fund serves as the city's primary operating fund, providing financial resources for essential services and core operations. Revenues within the general fund are unrestricted and can be allocated towards various areas, including police services, general government, operations, management, and specific capital projects. For the upcoming fiscal year, the general fund is budgeted at $1.99 million. Police services represent the largest funding allocation, accounting for $1.4 million, or 73% of the total general fund budget. Capital projects and city administration are allocated at 3% and 10% of the budget. The fiscal year 24-25 capital projects budget allocates $14.17 million for various capital and special projects throughout the city. Funding for these projects will be drawn from designated sources, including the general fund, the Parks per capita fund, earmarked for the dog park projects, Parks Capital Fund supporting the Eel River Trail and Gateway beautification initiatives, SB1 fund dedicated to street and road work, the ARPA fund utilizing federal COVID relief funds, and sewer and water capital project allocations. This year's capital project budget represents a significant increase of 290% compared to the previous fiscal year. The water distribution system project is the primary driver of this growth, accounting for over $11 million of the allocation. The City of Rio Dell organizational chart visually represents the city's governance structure, various components interact. The citizens form the foundation of the charter. Citizens elect the council members who represent their interests. The city council is comprised of elected representatives, and the city council establishes policy for the city. The planning commission is an appointed body that serves as an advisory, offering recommendations to the city council on matters related to development and land use. The city staff encompasses the employees responsible for the day-to-day operations of the city government, ensuring the smooth functioning of various departments. And contractors or individuals hired by the city to perform specific tasks or provide specialized services, such as engineering or legal counsel. They all fall under the category. The city of Rio Dell has budgeted a total of 23.95 full-time employees for fiscal year 24-25. This represents a decrease of 1.7 full-time employees compared to the previous fiscal year. This staffing adjustment reflects specific changes, including the elimination of the management analyst position and one utility worker position. Additionally, the community development director position has been transitioned to a full-time. I want to thank the city council for participating in the budget process and their continued commitment to fiscal responsibility. I would also like to acknowledge and thank the city of Rio Dell staff for their support in building this budget for fiscal year 24-25. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has.
Thank you, Travis. That was very, very well presented, and we appreciate everything that you've done and staff has done. You brought it together, you made it make sense, and we appreciate that. Are there any questions from them?
No, and I concur with the mayor. Thank you for all your work.
It's just, I'm kind of jumping ahead of things, but there's some recommendations in the next item, I think, on the agenda. Is that included for the police officer incentives and, is that included in the money?
So I'll jump in on that. It is not specifically included in this budget. However, we have a number of vacancies in the police department. Our budget assumptions when we set the budget is that vacant positions are set at the C-step level, full benefits, full family benefits. Our experience is that rarely ever occurs. So particularly if we're taking somebody through the academy and into placement, typically they're not going to have family level health insurance, and they're typically going to be started at base step. So the next agenda is basically salary savings within the budget. We think that that's going to be adequate every year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wilson, Councilmember Orr.
No.
Anyone in the public? Any questions? No emails. No, hands raised. I'm not able to get that in my head until the evening. No hands raised. Okay, thank you. And so I think then, are we looking for a motion to adopt? City manager?
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Please vote. Motion carries 5-0. Now we will move on to the adoption of a recruitment retention program related to the police department. City manager, page 85 in our packets.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. As the council is aware, Chief Greg Allen has resigned to take the position of the chief of police for Cal Poly Humboldt. We're very excited for him. Think that he's a very good fit for the position and wish him well in that important role. In the meantime, at the last council meeting, the council confirmed the appointment of Jeff Conner, our former chief of police, as our interim chief of police. And so we are, in a process of trying to build up the police department. And across the nation, really, and including here in Humboldt County, staffing the situation in law enforcement is changing. And so some would label it a crisis, and certainly that is becoming more and more likely to be deemed a crisis as time goes on and positions remain unfilled. But this item seeks to basically address that through at least one of the tools in the council's toolbox, which is incentive pay. And so what we have seen here in Humboldt County and elsewhere is that this is now becoming a market condition. And so the items and recommendations before the council really meet the bar of other agencies. We're not recommending at this time exceeding that bar, but we want to meet that bar. And we certainly don't want to get into a giant bidding war, because the reality is probably Rio Dell will lose that battle over time. Again, as Travis just presented in this council's budget, the police department consumes 73% of the city's general fund obligation. That's very, very high. So the city is putting up money and prioritizing the police department above and beyond most other organizations where that general fund commitment is more in the 50-55% range for the typical police department in a city. So we're doing everything we can to provide the resources. Historically, we have been doing that. Chief Conner oversaw several reforms, including updating the information technology system for the police department, staffing upgrades. We have a community services officer handles code and miscellaneous minor issues to help free up officer time. We went from, I believe, 5 or so officers up to, functionally at one point, 7 or 8, if I'm remembering correctly. So the department has been successful in the past, and it's about getting the city back into that position again. So what is part of part of what informs this situation is that, to bring somebody through the academy, and then they have to go through a field training officer position where they're basically monitored and they're accompanied essentially wherever they go to get out of that FTO process from beginning to end is over $60,000 for each individual officer out of the academy, through the academy into employment. And so the other condition is that law enforcement generally have a very high rate of folks who go through the academy, get into a position, and then separate from the career altogether. And so it's higher than most other professions. People find out pretty quickly whether it's right for them in the first year or two. And so there is a significant amount of investment that a city has to make in order to bring somebody, into the fold of law enforcement. And so therefore it makes sense from a financial standpoint, strictly speaking, to offer lateral incentives. The city has never used an incentive to lateral somebody into the department. However, we have lost at least 2 officers recently to lateral incentives from other agencies. And so we help pay and train them, and then they went off, which is their right to do. And we want to encourage all of the city employees to to find their happy spot and find success in their careers. So offering the incentive in terms of helping to both bring in a new chief of police and also potentially a lateral just makes sense. And again, it's a market condition. Part of the program here, though, is also to pay respect and provide equity for the existing officers that we do have. So right now, today, our staffing level, and Chief Connor can correct me if I'm wrong on this, is 3 full-time officers, which would include the chief. And also, in particular, one full-time community services officer who, again, provides that direct level of support to the officers in the field. Isn't just in the office or in part-time, but out in the field quite often. And so, typically we break this up by bargaining unit. In this case, the department itself is in a crisis, or excuse me, is nearing a crisis. So I would like to correct myself there. And so we would like to provide this incentive so that we can see if we can lateral people in and provide an extra incentive for the chief of police position. We did rather low-key float the chief of police position locally in hopes of pulling in a candidate. That recruitment was not successful. So we're going to be floating that again. We'd like to float it with the incentive and do a broader statewide advertisement for that particular position. So existing law enforcement would receive $7,500 annually for 3 years spread across their 26 pay periods a year. And then our CSO would receive $6,000 in a similar fashion. The $50,000 bonus would be, and again, we're just matching what the other agencies do, which would be $10,000 upfront on the first pay period, and the rest of it is split over 2.5 years. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but the recommended motion that staff is recommending is to authorize the city manager to implement a recruitment and retention program for the police department, including one $50,000 hiring incentive for the chief of police, one $50,000 lateral incentive for a police officer, both paid over 2.5 years. Further, a retention bonus for the existing 40-hour per week sworn law enforcement is $7,500 annually for up to 3 years. And one retention bonus for the community services officer, $6,000 annually for 3 years. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions from the council.
Thank you, city manager. And just Are there any questions?
Yeah, you were explaining how we're going to afford this. Is there, we can see it on paper? You're saying because of the extra positions that are open and how that you're figuring that out. Is there, we can have it, we can see it, how it figures out.
So I'd be happy to have our finance director produce a spreadsheet so that the council can see it.
Okay, and I don't know if this is off subject, tell me if it is. Where did we advertise for our office police chief?
So we advertise locally in the Journal, and then we also, there's personal phone calls made, and folks did come down to the police department to chit chat with the departments. It's publicly advertised. There were direct mailers sent to each of the law enforcement agencies, HRs, and also directly to the departments as well.
In the area. And are we going to think about going outside of the area? But like, I can never remember the name. Like we used to do it in Western Cities magazine, and we would like a 4th or a 1/2 page ad, and go.
Yeah, so I don't know if we would utilize the magazines, but there's a lot of online publications where you instantaneously can display the advertisements, and so the plan would be, yes, California Post certified.
Okay, because I'd like to see us go out of the area a little bit too. And have we ever thought, I mean, would hiring a recruiter, or would that, somebody else looking at this and getting people to come in? or I'm not sure how expensive that is.
Yeah, I mean, there would be a cost associated with the recruiter. I think, frankly, we're probably going to find more success for cheaper cost through those mailers than anything else. A recruiter is a potential option. And we're certainly going to be looking into that for the interim role because Chief Connor will be unavailable towards the end of August. And so they're most 90% sure that we will have to have a second interim in the meantime during that period. It could be internally or externally, but those costs generally range in the $20,000 figure.
Well, suppose we went out with the recruiter and we could just do it without the 50,000, all the sign-on bonuses, and we could get somebody, because we're going out of the area, somebody that would we want to try that before we did the bonuses, or that because?
We could look into that, but I think at this point, because these are hiring incentives, which have become kind of the market norm in law enforcement, is going to be a necessary prerequisite, no matter what we do.
I think that's it. Yeah.
When you say lateral, is it from the internal or is it from an existing?
Yeah, so it would be a lateral from an existing agency, somebody who's already been through their certification through the academy, through their FTO. Somebody who's already pre-trained. Again, that cost to the city is $60,000. So that's the concept.
Well, the lateral person doesn't require the $60,000. They're not going to the academy and.
So they're already ready basically to go. Law enforcement, even when you switch from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, you do have to go through a pretty extensive background evaluation that we do, separately and independently of the prior employing jurisdiction. But yeah, it would be net neutral in theory to the city, but because we're basically taking the training costs and providing that instead of training somebody through to lateraling somebody. And then, there's also costs that are not that easy to capture, particularly the FTO portion, because the officers are being trained in a practical street manner that does detract from the training officers, day-to-day law enforcement role.
Does the academy, are we putting out a thing to the academy to try to get someone who would talk, this was brought up the last council meeting, to get somebody in that vein?
So we are working on that, and Chief Connor can get any more specifics without getting too specific.
So if I can add to what the city manager, a lateral transfer is not only somebody who's been through the academy, completed FTO, but they've also completed probation and have their basic post certificate. So depending upon the department, they've been a police officer for at least a year, and in many cases, 18 months. So they have some experience, and they've decided this is a job they're going to continue with. And so it's hopeful that if we do the lateral, they're not going to turn around and decide 6 months later that law enforcement's not for them, as we've had the experience in our recent. Currently, the number of people attending the police academy is extremely low. I'm not sure how many are enrolled in the academy that starts, orientation is on Saturday and education starts on Monday. But the last few classes have been in the low teens. And so just about everybody who is enrolled in that academy is already hired by a local department. So there is not a pool of potential graduates. That's changed significantly since I was starting as chief. We used to be able to do that, and we just really can't anymore. We currently have one recruit who we came in and did some paperwork today. Still in the near future who is going to be sponsored by the Rio Dell Police Department in this coming academy. We have another young man who would like to work for us. His background's not complete. He's going to start the academy, even though he hasn't been hired by the department, and hopefully nobody coaches him away from us before we can get it. Is there anything else I can add to that?
There was another question that slipped in my mind, what you're saying. I think back to the recruiter. I'm in agreement with Councilmember Woodall that we would reach out to a candidate recruiter for if it costs $20,000, what it costs, that seems fairly low in comparison to the offset of finding these people. But I really don't think there's a lot of local people looking to come to Rio Dell from local advertising means. I'm not sure who wants to be a police officer at this point in time, but that's what I think a recruiter would help us. They're experiencing this all over the United States. And so somebody with some expertise in this field, I think would benefit the city. And this is, I know we talked about this previously, well, not talked about it, but went through this sometime back before Chief Connors and all that we went through, that this was never going to be an end to this process of people coming to Rio Dell, getting experience and wanting to move on. And since we put this into our priorities, that public safety and particularly the police department I think our top item. I think virtually everybody put on that as a thing we want to do. And so with that in mind, that would become a priority of staff to just, that's number one, and that we've got to get these people here to follow on the lines that we're going to reside back onto the county and that other cities have done. I think it's foolish. That's going to impact everything else along the lines. Why Rio Dell's a city. It's going to impact whether people want to come here and have businesses. Recently, we just had the vandalism of some of our beautification projects in the city here. Again, Councilmember Woodall's planning of the things. And so to say the police force needs to go out and be on the lookout, put their priorities on plants. I mean, I hope they're looking for that. But the other part of just having businesses that can be comfortable with wanting to come here and be a business without a police force, that would, I know if I was in business, I would certainly go to another direction than to come here. So I'm asking that we really, really emphasize this as every day when you come in, that's a priority that is addressed towards this police process. That's all I have. If anybody else wants to comment on that, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. As far as incentives go, I don't think we have a choice. Really, it seems like that's what everybody's doing and it's what it takes and it's the norm. Now, nothing that should take place over a recruiter or something. I think I agree with what everybody's saying. Obviously, police staffing and public safety was one of our top priorities. So I think we're gonna just have to suck it up and do what we gotta do. But no questions. I think we have to do the incentive thing, whether we use a recruiter.
And I haven't followed consent.
You did do that.
Remember,
Just more comment than a question. The recruiter thing, I think, is seen its day as far as professions like police officers, especially when bigger cities are using them when they're going to recruit people from bigger cities, because small cities like Rio Dell pay much like being. I'm not against that, but I think that the incentives are definitely hinder the process, and trying to find a way to get around it. It's going to be to our advantage.
Yeah.
Just so I will be able to get something from Travis, right, on how it's going to, okay, thank you.
And I think that I agree with the recruitment bonus and the retention bonus, I think, or the recruitment incentive. I think that is where we are. I don't think that, if you look at the big picture, we're a small town, we don't have PERS. There are a lot of reasons why not to come to Rio Dell for the police department. So offering an incentive, especially when everyone else around us is offering an incentive, just seems to be the most reasonable thing to do. If we have the ability to do it, I think it is absolutely, and I think it's just the smart thing to do. I spoke with the city manager months ago about this, because you can just see the writing on the wall, you see what's happening. And we need to do as much as we can do. If we want a police force, we need to do whatever we need to do to get that police force, and to do the incentives, to get laterals in. That means we'll have people who are ready to go. They don't need a training officer. So now, instead of having 2 plus 2 plus a trainee, we have 3. We have 3 officers that are able to go out and do what they are supposed to do. And so I full throatedly have to get here, think that this is the right move. So are there any public? Oh, Sharon.
There's not a lot of public here.
I know.
Sure, still at Painter Street. So I think that the bonuses, the recruitment stuff, the poaching is where we're at. I mean, that's where all the agencies are, I'm afraid. In my department, we're seeing it with behavioral health. You know, everybody's screaming for law enforcement. We all need them. Not enough people are going into law enforcement. It's a really hard job. You do a really hard job. So I think the bonuses are unfortunately where we're at. We're going to have to pay. But I have a question on the bonuses. If we're paying it out over 2.5 years, what if the person leaves after a year? Do they have to agree to stay with us for 2.5 years, or can they take the portion that's already been paid of the bonus and go off somewhere else?
So it would be paid out per pay period. So if they separated before that period of time, they would receive the remainder.
Okay, but they would get the $10,000 up front, and then the ones in each payday. The county has a program, CalSpec, for social workers, which will pay some of their college expenses if they will agree to come work for the county. And for anybody listening, for the love of God, come and work for the county. But they have to agree to work for us for a period of time to pay that off. They can't leave early unless they're willing to pay that money back at that time. Now, the second they hit that period of time, we lose them. They go somewhere else. But we got it for that period of time. You'd have 2.5 years if there was a way to, condition that perhaps, or incentivize somehow that they stay for that period of time. And then for recruiting, we're going to be poaching from other places, of course. And if we could send out, especially with bonuses added, send it out to outlying areas. I would advertise to the large cities and to the places and advertise all the benefits of here. You're not in a giant urban environment as the police force. This is a small community. You can get to know your community. You can, do all these wonderful things. It's not 108 degrees here. We have a coastal breeze. It's beautiful. When you're off hours, you could go surfing. It's, lean into all the reasons why you'd want to come here. And then I would also add, when you're advertising it, advertise the housing costs. The reasons we can't recruit medical people into here is even at the high salaries that medical get, they can't afford to buy. We've recruited medical into the county, and then they've had to turn us down because they can't afford to buy a place here, even at those salaries. So I'd be leaning into the fact that we have lower housing comparatively to other areas, and heck, send them out a resource link, links of properties for sale or for rent. Here's a place where you are realtors or something. But in order to get them up here, you're going to have to deal with the housing situation as well. But sure, recruit the heck, poach the heck out, get them all. Thanks.
Thank you. Supervisor Bushnell.
Well, good evening, council. I just want to say from the county's perspective that hiring the recruitment process has been difficult and has not resulted in much for our county. And Kyle, I'm sure, is aware that it's the recruiting agencies, they're very costly and they don't result in much. But I would say that if you tell a story about your city and what it's like, hiring someone to create you a robust ad that you can digitally push out everywhere and in different areas, it has been very successful for the county doing something like that. We've had recruiting agencies that have zero results, and we do have first. So I would just think twice before you spend that money. Your incentive policy that you're creating, you're going to have to. The county had to go there. Everybody has had to go there. So good luck, and it is a very tough job. And police are not readily available hardly anywhere. So good luck.
Where do you, question please, where do you advertise when you make this flowery brochure that says this is Nirvana place to go? I mean, where do you post that? And where do they see that?
So Kyle can call RCA office and talk to Kati, and she can help him with where we put that stuff out. But I know we send it to tons of places. There's tons of governmental, places that you can do advertising for jobs, and they can push it out. Most board of supervisors offices or county offices for every county has, so you can send it to the county and they can put it out over their social media. That's something that they do a lot. Everybody wants cops, so, they're not gonna be like stellar about it, but they'll do it. So, and I know Patty would help this link up and give you all those links, which you probably already know. I just don't want you to waste your money on it.
Good, it's good input.
Yeah.
Not wasting time.
And I mean, every Christmas.
Definitely put that on cookies, I'll make cookies. I think that, so I will, are there any more? Any emails? Any hands raised? Okay, so I'd like to have a motion to adopt and authorize the city manager to implement a hiring bonus, incentive rather, for 50,000 over 2.5 years, a retention bonus for 7,500 over 3 years, and for the community services officer, a $6,000 bonus over 3 years. That all good?
Also move.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. So, motion carries 5-0. And so, I want to thank you both for giving us that, some information, some ideas. I'm sure our city manager is on to it. But I do like especially
I want to say
advertisement, sending it out.
it's not even have hiring freeze.
Okay.
Was that under Sheriff's Department?
So although we are having more discussion about that on. There's exceptions to the hiring freeze, which are public safety, but you have to get board approval.
Thank you. And so now we come to council reports. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I attended our ad hoc. We had a meeting about the Cal Fire / TGS property debacle. I also attended the soft ribbon cutting for the Eel River Trail, which is city manager said was lovely and just couldn't have been a better day. Really happy about that. we had the first meeting of the Parks Master Plan Ad Hoc Committee, including 2 7th graders who did pretty well.
Yes, good kid.
They're still 7th graders, but they behaved well and actually got some really good input from them. And it was just really nice to sit at a table with city council, fire district, school board, and local children. I mean, that felt like a win in and of itself. So nice one. And then if you all have checked your boxes, we've got a recently revised and drafted copy of our parks survey that we will be meeting about again, but want to keep you all in the loop. This past Saturday, Mayor Garnes and I both attended the Trail Summit, the Humboldt County Trail Summit up in Eureka, and that was a really nice time to just be there and represent Rio Dell. We got so many compliments about how good things are looking, how nice it is to see us at these events and things like that. And I think we had good swag too. We did.
That's why.
I think we did. Let's see, upcoming Chamber of Commerce is meeting this Friday. We have a change of location. We are meeting in the offices of the town of Scotia. Don't know the address, but it's right on the main drag there across from We Care. Also this Friday, our lovely finance director and I are hitting the streets to drum up interest in our facade improvement program. So I get to go meet with some local businesses about that, trying to spruce up downtown. The bike route is coming up. That is June 15th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Rio Dell School parking lot. It's a really fun event. You can decorate your bike, you can learn basic bike repairs. There's a bike parade led by our lovely police department. So it's pretty fun. And lastly, June 13th, I will go to the Fire District Board of Directors meeting and the school board meeting. Yeah, that's it.
Councilman Roar.
Nothing to report, but I have a question back to the police thing. It's just a thing. Why, and I know you can't recruit 18-year-olds onto the police force, but I've yet to see any of the law enforcement departments at career fairs talking to kids saying, hey, this is what we have to offer you, this is what you have to do to get there, before the colleges and universities kind of taint them towards, I hate to say it, the occupation. So I've been to several kids approaching that and have yet to see one. So I don't know if it's an idea. The military is there and they do very. But other than that, that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Wilson.
Yeah, I have HWA. Back to the police department, the police, to particularly to staff, that I know it's a daunting task. I appreciate the effort that it's going to take for you to do this, you know, to pull us off. And if it's even doable, and there's a lot of, what do you call it? A lot of opposition just because of the situation that we're in. But all the effort that you're making is appreciated. I know for this council and myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Wilson. Councilman Wilson. And so, thank you. I also, well, that's Mayor Pro Tem said, attended the Red Redwood Trail, the Humboldt Summit, the Humboldt Trail Summit. What I'd like to put out for anyone listening and to the council is we would really like Rio Dell to be a part of the Redwood Trail, the Eel River new non-motorized trail, be a spur of it. If you go to greatredwoodtrailplan.org, you can actually go to their interactive map. And you can make the suggestion, come across 283, go down come up, go down, or come down across the bridge and go down Wildwood down into the downtown business area. And you can literally map that spot, that trail out, that spur, and make that comment. They extended the period to make comments until July 3rd. So any comments that we make, that we can make as a city, but really as individuals, so that we know, they know that Rio Dell as a community is involved and wants this. And this will be a boon to Rio Dell if we are a part of it. We can have them come and do the presentation again that shows the economic benefit to coming here, to having the trail come through here. So I just wish that everyone, if you can, go to greatroadgoodtrailplan.org and make a comment. Tell your friends to make a comment, tell your neighbors to make a comment. We want to be a part of this. We almost missed it and they extended it. So we should take this opportunity to go and make our comments and make our voices heard. Because I think that it would be really good for Rio Dell, for this area. And I think that's all. I will not be here on June 18th. Yeah. Mayor Pro Tem will have it. And so that's all I have. Is there a motion to,
So moved.
have a motion? Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Meeting adjourned until June 18th.